Good evening. Hi, I'm Kate Schwab. I work with College Now, and we're here tonight for the Freshman Night Seminar. This is typically a seminar that we do towards the end of the school year for students that are rising to 10th grade. So it's a way to start thinking about things that you should be doing in the summer, as well as you move into your 10th grade year. So I'd like to welcome all of you. Throughout this presentation, I will turn my camera off so that I can look at the PowerPoint. However, towards the end, I'll come back online. So, and you'll have the opportunity towards the end to ask questions. A couple of ways of doing that. So if you haven't been on GoToMeeting before, you can do either one of two things. You can either raise your hand and we will call on you and unmute your microphone, or you can ask questions in the panel box. My co-presenter for today is Carmen Daniel, and she will be monitoring the question box throughout. So if there are questions throughout the presentation that you ask in the question panel, she will be monitoring those and responding to those. So again, thank you for coming. I look forward to presenting this information to you. And again, any questions throughout, feel free to put them in that question box, and then we'll have time towards the end to have the questions. So we're just going to jump right in. All right, so class of 2023. It's exciting when you see your class on there. So just a little bit about us, if you're not familiar with us, we are a nonprofit college access organization. We are the first of its kind. We have been around for over 50 years, and we still remain the largest in Ohio and remain one of the largest in the nation. And our mission is to increase college attainment through college access and success advising, financial aid counseling, and scholarship and retention services. Many of you may have College Now in your schools. So you may have advisors that are there every day, Monday through Friday, or you may have advisors that are there throughout the year at different times throughout the year to help students with the process. So what we're looking forward to accomplish for today is getting you ready for your 10th grade year. So we always like to start out looking at doing a quick glance at graduation requirements, because these do change throughout, and especially for your class, they have changed.
Hey,
and then we also,
Kate?
yes, yeah.
We can't.
Sorry to interrupt. We can't see your slides.
Oh, okay, sorry. Now, can you see them?
No. Oh, wait, I think it's coming up. Yep, we're good.
Okay, sorry about that. Thanks for letting me know. So what we plan to accomplish is to get ready for your 10th grade year. We'll do, again, as I mentioned, a quick review of the high school graduation requirements. We're also going to start looking at putting the pieces together. So we're going to take a look at different post-high school options, because it is not too early to start thinking about those, as well as take a look at the ACT and SAT, just basically a brief overview of what those are, because those are college entrance exams that you'll be taking as you progress through high school. And then we'll be taking a look also at the PSAT, and then again, we'll take questions after that. So again, just to kind of quickly go over the high school graduation requirements. So for any student entering 9th grade on or after July 1st of 2019, so that is your grade, high school students now have a little bit more flexibility with graduation pathways. And the goal of these is to help build on your strengths and your passions. So as you probably see other high school students in your districts, it has looked different for the current 12th graders. It will look a little different for the current 10th and 11th graders. But again, the landscape has changed a bit for your grade level. Just one piece as we go through these, there are additions that school districts can add, and I'll note where districts can add additional requirements, as well as these could perhaps change. The state has continuously changed the graduation requirements over the last handful of years, but again, we just want to make sure that you're aware of them. So the way that the state has broken down the high school graduation requirements at this point, they kind of call it the basics and then the competencies, and then they go into the options. So just for the basics, the state does require a minimum of 20 credits in specified subjects. However, with that being said, districts are able, and most of them do, add additional requirements for credits. So some of you might be in districts that require 22, 23 credits to actually graduate high school. So that may vary, but these are the basics, the minimum that the state requires. So the minimum the state requires is 4 credits in English language arts, 4 credits in math, 3 in science, 3 in social studies, a half a credit in health, a half a credit in PE, and then 5 credits of electives. So again, those are the basics. And again, your districts may have additional requirements for those credit pieces. The other piece that you probably are familiar with, the state tests, which you have taken most likely, or well, would take. This year we didn't, but moving forward, most likely students will be taking those again next year. For this particular class, so class of 2023, your class, there's going to be Algebra 1 and English 2 tests. So passing score still needs to be determined by the state. So that more information to come on that, and you'll see that as the school year progresses into next year. But just so that you're aware that not only do you need to have class credits and credits from your subject areas, but then you also need to have what's called the competency credits, which are those end of course exams, or Ohio State tests is also the other name for them. If a student has taken those, they have not had an opportunity to pass or meet the requirements for those competency tests, then there are other options that students can explore, and they would work with their counselor and their district to determine these different options. So one would be demonstrate a career focused activity. There may be, if a student is enlisting in the military, they would need to show documentation of that, or they're completing what's known as CCP. Again, not to get into too many details on that, and the website is on this slide, so you're more than welcome to, of course, to go and look at the additional items underneath those options, but wanted just to make sure that you're familiar with options that a student may have if they haven't quite met the requirements for the competency aspect of graduation. In addition to all that, there's now this readiness requirement, and so that is earning 2 diploma seals. Again, those are still being determined by the state, and then the districts will determine which seals they offer, but the opportunity for the seals is to give you a chance to demonstrate academic, technical, and professional skills that align with your passions and your interests. And for example, one of them might be the Ohio Means Job Readiness Seal, which is a seal that you can earn by doing different activities through the Ohio Means Jobs website. Your district may have a College Ready seal that they offer. So again, there will be a number of options, but just for basic knowledge, for the class of 2023, it would be earning 2 diploma seals. Again, if you have any questions about that, definitely connect with your college, your school counselor in the fall, or you can visit the website that is listed on here. But just wanted to kind of start out because we want to make sure as you move into 10th grade that you are familiar with what the graduation requirements are, because there are different steps along the way in the next 3 years that you'll need to take in order to graduate from high school. So then we like to jump into the college roadmap, and this is really, for us, college is 2-year, 4-year, essentially any kind of post-secondary education beyond high school. So we call it post-high school education sometimes. So it's something that's either, again, a technical training, a 2-year school, a 4-year school, and we're going to look at those in a few minutes, but just something that you will do after high school. And so there are steps along the way in your senior year, but of course this is the time now to really start. And some of you may have already started, but if you haven't, we wanted just to review some steps that you should take as you move into your 10th grade year so that you are getting yourself prepared for post high school. And I know that 12th grade probably sounds far away, but I'm sure you know this year has gone by fast as a 9th grader, and it will continue to go quickly. So again, just making sure that you're preparing yourself for your journey after high school. So one of our recommendations is definitely schedule a meeting with your school counselor. And for some of you, again, and we're talking more the fall, so these are steps to take in the fall. And depending what school looks like in the fall, that may be done in different ways, could be virtual. It just depends on where to go with school in the fall. But will be opportunities for you to touch base with your school counselor. And so just making sure that you're on track and that you're taking courses that will prepare you for your post-secondary education and or career tech. So again, just being aware of which courses you're getting, and then how does that roll into what you're going to do after high school. Another thing, another site or another resource that is really good for you to start exploring, and this is something you could do now through the summer, is to actually utilize Khan Academy. And Miss Daniel will put that link in the question box so you can see that link. You can also just Google Khan Academy and it will come up. But this will prepare you for the PSAT, which most of you will take this year moving into the fall. And then it will also, if you actually go onto it now, you can take a diagnostic assessment and it will help you start increasing your skills in certain areas. And so it's really a tool for students that you can use now, you can use after you take the PSAT as well. It will help you prepare for the SAT, and ultimately it does help you prepare in ways for the ACT as well. And it also transforms into coursework as well. So it really does help prepare you and help you kind of fine tune your skills. We also encourage you to begin to research and familiarize yourself with the college admissions requirements. So again, I know it might seem like senior year is far off, but it's really not. And so for you to just start looking at those requirements, and again, we'll kind of break down post-high looks like in a few minutes. And if you are really interested in a career area, or maybe you're not really sure where to start, definitely familiarize yourself with different careers. Some of you may have Naviance in your schools. Some of you may already be using Ohio Means Jobs in your schools. I'm not sure, you might even have career cruising. It really just depends at which district you're with. However, a lot of those sites do have interviews from different professionals, but also if you know professionals in your communities, it may be a good way to start interviewing them and kind of finding out more about their career interest areas. And you can also look up stuff on YouTube too about different careers. There's a lot of opportunities to learn more about different careers and different career fields. The other piece we like to encourage students to do is to get involved in their communities and volunteering. So again, I know the extracurricular activities are on pause for right now, but eventually when those come back online and students can participate in extracurricular activities or volunteering in their community, highly encourage you to start doing that when the time is right and when we're given the green light to start doing those things again. And then it does not hurt to start developing a resume, use a list of accomplishments, awards, honors. I really like to encourage students to start that now, and you can start building over the years, because oftentimes when we work with seniors, if they started then, it's hard to remember everything they did early on in their high school career. So it's good to start it now and just keep adding to it. So then we would just like to take a look at how post-high school education is organized. So there's multiple different tracks for students. So for some students, going to a trade school, technical school, or vocational school may help them with certifications or licensures, and these are just some examples under each thing. These are programs that may be short-term training, so it might be some training programs might be 6 weeks, some might be 32 weeks. Again, it just depends. There are a number of careers that really start out kind of in the trade school, technical school for training to get your foot in the door. And then once you're there, they most likely will give you additional training. So again, once you're starting to explore all those different careers you might be interested in, you'll start seeing these names and the post-secondary pathways or post-high school pathways that you would pursue for those different careers. There are also two-year colleges, which are known as community college or junior colleges. I know most of you are familiar with Cuyahoga Community College, also known as Tri-C. So these, again, offer technical and vocational trainings, and students earn an associate's degree. So you might earn an associate's degree in arts or associate's degree in science. Again, it just depends, but these are some examples. institutions near us. So Tri-C, Hocking, depending on which community you're in, could be Lorraine Community College. So again, there are a number of 2-year programs, and they offer different coursework for those different program areas. And some students start out in a 2-year school and then transfer to a 4-year school to finish their bachelor's degree. So there are options when you start out at a community college. And then there's a 4 years. So that's where you earn your undergraduate degree, also known as a bachelor's degree. Typically takes 4 years. And these have a number of undergraduate degrees where students, might major in finance, or they might major in business, or teaching, educational, elementary teaching or high school teaching. So when a student finishes at these schools, they earn a Bachelor of Arts in a subject area, or they might earn a Bachelor's of Science in social work. It just, again, depends on what major they pursue. But it's typically 4 years. Sometimes the majors take 5 years just because of the volume of coursework they have to take to pursue that career. And then the last thing is a graduate school or professional school. So this is when you hear somebody gets a graduate degree or a master's degree. So a number of the undergraduate degree institutions also offer graduate school as well. So Ohio State University is a very good example. They not only have 4-year degrees, which are bachelor's degrees, they also have graduate school and professional school. So med school, law school, all of that falls under these. So we just wanted to, again, just give you a snapshot of what it looks like post high school. And so when I was on the other slide and recommended that you perhaps do some research on careers and on the admissions process, these are the kinds of schools that you will start seeing, and you'll see the breakdown of what's required to pursue different career fields. So, just to kind of explore, why pursue post-secondary high school, and when students are in their education journey of high school, they do a lot of exploring and kind of figuring out what's their best fit. Again, I've mentioned a few times, but high school does go by quickly, so we want to make sure the students are thinking about it. We do like to point out for students that if you decide to go on to post-secondary education, so going on to one of those technical schools or 2-year school or 4-year school and beyond, it really is a big payoff, and it's investing in yourself and your future. So these are just kind of some ballpark numbers. So for students that have a high school diploma and have not pursued education beyond high school, typically roughly make $1.2 million in their lifetime. On average, graduates with a bachelor's degree, so again, that's a 4-year degree, earn about $2.1 million in their lifetime. And these numbers are going to change, but this is just a ballpark figure. And then students that have their associate's degree, it's typically $1.6 million in their lifetime. Again, it will vary on your profession. It will vary on many, many life circumstances, but this is just on the average. And this number will change throughout time as well, but just again, kind of a ballpark figure. So again, just another look at the big picture and why post-secondary education pays off. High salaries are not only the benefit of attending college, but the more education you get, the more likely you're always to have a job. A college degree enhances your employment by nearly 50%. And so the landscape's always changing in careers too. So having that higher education helps you along with that changing of the landscape of jobs and careers that are available. More and more jobs are requiring specialized training, whether it be a 2-year, 4-year college degree. Again, depends on the career choice and kind of the career pathway. More education means more choices and means more opportunities for you. So it's beyond a paycheck. It's really, a career is really fulfilling in so many ways, and doing what you like to do really helps as well. And that's kind of the benefits as well as going on to post-secondary is, again, having some more of those choices that you may not have if you choose not to go. So really like to point that out for students, that there are a lot of benefits to going to school beyond high school. So then as we kind of talked about the landscape of what post-secondary high school or post-high education looks like. We also like to share with students just kind of what colleges are looking at or post-secondary institutions are looking at, because some of these, all three of these areas, and there are more things that they look at, but these are the kind of the ones that right now I wanted to highlight for you and demonstrate, because you can make the difference now. And so this is important for you to understand. So your GPA, your high school transcript, I'm sure all of you know that the minute you start ninth grade, you have a GPA, and everything you do from now until the end of your senior year in your coursework will be highlighted on that transcript. So I'm sure most of you have at least seen the first semester on your transcript, and some of you soon will be seeing your second semester. And so you can tell how your GPA fluctuates depending on how well you do. So it is important to know that post-secondary institutions look at the whole picture. So they're not just looking at your senior year, and most of the time you're going to be submitting your transcript before you even have senior year coursework on there. So when you're applying to these institutions in the fall, you most likely will only have your transcript showing 9th through 11th grade. And so we just want to make sure that you're fully aware of that and you understand that, and just understanding that it really counts every step of the way and not just your senior year. It also, what a transcript does is reflects the difficulty of the classes you chose and how well you've handled them. So as I mentioned before earlier on in the slides, you know, touching base with your school counselors and making sure you're taking the right coursework, and if there are rigorous courses offered, so those are your AP classes, honors classes, you know, you might have a variety of those courses at your school, really taking advantage of those if it fits with your schedule. There are also many students that take College Credit Plus, so your counselors help you with that as well. So that might be where you're actually taking some college credit. And so what it does too is it also shows that you can balance a schedule and manage your time. That's really kind of some of the high level points that they're looking at when they look at your transcript and your GPA. For test scores, so those are the ACT and SAT, those are the college entrance courses that we'll talk about in a few minutes. So that's, you know, this is a way that it reflects your academic ability, your problem solving skills, and how well you remember what you learned in high school. The higher the scores, the more options you may have for scholarship dollars. So students will find as they start getting higher and higher in those scores, they might see some more academic financial aid or financial support from the post-secondary institutions in which they're applying to. So students often take those multiple times. So again, just for success is remember to study before the ACT and SAT. As I mentioned, one resource con, there are multiple resources out there. And then while you're taking those, you can send your scores directly to the colleges. So that's just another kind of tip for success. And then the other piece, as I mentioned, extracurricular activities, community services. This really speaks a lot about you as a student, as a young adult. And so again, I know we're kind of in an environment right now where some of these are off the table for the moment, but once we're back into the full swing of extracurricular activities and community service, really encouraging you to take those opportunities. It shows how responsible you are. It also reflects leadership skills and the reputation you have in the school. And most times, if you actually have to do an essay for post-secondary studies, so some applications require that, they're going to ask you about your leadership, and they're going to ask you about what you did beyond your academics. And so again, it's really important to think about those opportunities in your school as well as in your community. So again, a tip for success on that is stay a member in a club or an organization for more than a year. So, you know, if you're able to be in a club your first year all the way through your senior year, that shows a lot of responsibility and dedication. But also, you know, if you're able to kind of take advantage of multiple opportunities at school. And really try to get involved with activities that align with your career and academic goals. Again, depending on what school you go to, there may be some clubs after school. Like I know quite a few schools have STEM clubs, so science that are for students that are really interested maybe in even robotics. And of course, there's athletics, there's student council. Again, there's a number of opportunities at the various schools, so just kind of take advantage if you haven't had the opportunity to do so far. So again, as I mentioned, we're just going to take a high-level view of the ACT and the SAT, because these are two college entrance exams that most universities use to making those admissions decisions. And it's important to for you to know what's on them and kind of what they do, because we know that a lot of times students kind of question what the college uses these for, and so we just want to make sure you understand how they use them. So for the ACT, it's a test that focuses on logic and reasoning, not just pure knowledge. Typically, students take it for the first time their junior year, but again, that may vary depending on the student, depending on the district. Waivers are available for you to take additional times if you qualify, so there are some qualifying pieces for those waivers. And then your ACT score will be give colleges an idea of how well you would perform in college classes. So really what the idea is to kind of give them a snapshot of how you would be able to navigate college coursework. So what's on the test? So for the English section, there's about 75 questions. It's 45 minutes. The math section has 60 questions and it's about 60 minutes, and you do get timed for all of these. Reading is 40 questions and 35 minutes. Science is 40 questions and 35 minutes. And then there is an optional essay, and again, that will vary if a student decides to take those. And so this is how they are scored. So each section has a range from 1 to 36. The national average for it's what's called a composite score, so it's a tally of all the sections, is about a 21. In Ohio, it's about a 22. And then these benchmark scores are scores that are considered college ready. So that means a student, if they get these benchmark scores or higher in these specific subject areas, then a college would see that they're able to successfully navigate a college course. And then the SAT is another college entrance exam. And again, as I mentioned, most school districts will, by state law, offer you one for free in your junior year. And each district is a little different. Some may offer the SAT, some may offer the ACT, but again, you do have the options to take both, and we do encourage you to take both because sometimes students find they do better on one than the other. So we really like to make sure you take advantage of that and kind of see. We also recommend that students take it multiple times, because what we find is when you take it and you get your results back and you kind of understand the areas you need to work on, then you can continue working on those and strengthening your skills and then take it again. So typically students do see increases when they get that additional support, when they put some more work into studying for the various areas. So again, the SAT is typically done or taken for the first time in the spring of the junior year. And again, some that you probably in your school know when the students were taking those. You may have even come into school a little bit later because the juniors were taking them in March. So again, it just depends on what district you're in, but by state law, every student has to take one exam at their school, and that is something that districts offer. And then again, the district gets to decide which one it is. And then, as I mentioned a few times, making sure that you take the advantage of trying to take both the ACT and the SAT. And then again, it just gives the colleges an idea of how you would perform in those college classes. So again, just to look at what's on the test. So for reading, there's 52 questions at 65 minutes. There's writing and language, which is 44 questions, timed in 35 minutes. And then there's two different math sections. So one's with a calculator and one is without a calculator. And then there is an optional essay that would take an additional 50 minutes. So just give you a minute to kind of look at that. And then again, here is the scoring. So it's scored differently to the ACT. So the overall score range is a 400 to a 1600. And then you can see that for the subject areas, it's a 200 to 800 area. So math and then reading and writing. And then the essays are scored on a range from 2 to 8, but that is not calculated into your composite. So when you get your scores back, if you took the essay, you would have the score for the essay separate from your composite score. And then here you can just look at the national average, the Ohio average, and then benchmark scores that again demonstrate to a post-secondary institution that you are college ready. And then just to kind of highlight again what they're used for, they're primarily used for 3 purposes. This is just, what we hear from institutions that we work with, and there are some examples of institutions that we work with. We get to know the college reps very well. So typically they're used for college admission, scholarship eligibility, and then college course placement. So again, with that scholarship eligibility, as I mentioned earlier on, the higher the score, the more likely students are going to see some merit aid or some merit support, which means, academic tuition support because of what they scored on their ACT or SAT. So it's just good to know. Again, we review this because we want to make sure students have the information as they move into their 10th grade year, 11th grade, or all of their high school experience, but definitely as you're a rising 10th grader, to really know that these are ahead of you, and there are things that you can do now to start getting yourself ready for these post-secondary college exams. And then the PSAT, so this is kind of the precursor to the SAT. This gives a student some knowledge of where they would score. So in some of the districts, depending on where you go, you might already be taking the PSAT. You may have taken it in 8th grade, you may have taken it probably maybe not this year, but perhaps in 8th grade you did. And then a lot of districts give it in the 10th grade, just so they have a good idea of where students are, and it gives students a good idea of where they are. And then the 11th grade, it's taken for students because of the National Merit Scholarship. So, so a lot of the students, a lot of the districts will offer that to students as an opportunity to see if they would place in the National Merit Scholarship Program. So again, it's a kind of an overview, and kind of gives you the opportunity to practice what you would see on the SAT. Khan Academy is a practice tool for then the PSAT and the SAT. So as I mentioned that before. And then, as I mentioned earlier, it is always good to start researching post-secondary institutions. So we wanted to give you some of these. Now, I know some students get started really early going to college campuses, and right now college campuses are not giving tours, but they are virtually. And so there are a lot of great websites out there that have information. If you haven't been to Big Future, which is a College Board sponsored website, really great resources. It's a good place to start. Again, some of you may have Naviance, so there's a great way to explore colleges in there, but really just start familiarizing yourself with majors. There are often some students that have a post-secondary institution they really want to go to just because maybe a family member went to, or they just have heard of it. But then when they do research, they find that they may not necessarily have the major, or the major might not align to what they want to do for their career. So that's why it's good to start looking now and kind of familiarizing yourself, even with costs, because post-secondary, does come with a cost. And so it's important to know now kind of what the tuition looks like, room and board, what are their options for students. You might be a student that wants to study in a different country, and so what kind of programs do they have for overseas study? You might be someone who wants to be involved all through your your college experience. So looking at what kind of volunteer programs or student-led programs they have. So a lot of great information out there. And again, you have the time now, because you're still, early in your high school experience, to start researching those and getting yourself familiar with all the different institutions and kind of what they have to offer. So my colleague Carmen found this. We love to share quotes. We know that high school is a great experience. It's not always the easiest experience, but we just want you to make sure that you know that there are going to be times that, you know, that you might feel like you want to give up. Don't. Keep pursuing your dreams, keep achieving, and know that College Now is here to support you along the way. You have other adults and educators in your life to help you along the way. So just know you're not in it alone, that we're here to support you, and that it's, you know, with more planning and more prep, again, you'll open yourself up to more options as you start wrapping up your high school experience and again, moving into your post-high experience. So on that end, I have concluded what I have for the PowerPoint, and I'm going to now open it up for questions. Again, if you have questions, feel free to raise your hand, or maybe you've already been putting them into the question box. And Carmen, I'm just going to ask you to unmute yourself and then read out any questions that we may have in the question box.
Okay, no questions so far.
Okay. And as well, if you're thinking of questions, again, if you have College Now in your school full time, then this is just kind of a little snapshot of some of the workshops that we offer during the school year. If we're at your school some days throughout the year, but not fully throughout the school year, then typically we do work with mostly 11th and 12th graders, depending on what the school has asked us to do. But if you are in a school district that does have College Now Monday through Friday for the entire school year, then workshops are facilitated, as well as then you have the opportunity to talk with the advisor. As an organization, though, we do have a resource center. We are available to support students. So if you don't necessarily have us in your school, you know, we do have a website that you can put in questions and inquiries, and then one of us will follow up. As well as I mentioned, we do have a resource center that helps students with the process of going to post-high. So typically students make appointments a little bit later in their educational experience, but just wanted to put that out there as well.
Okay, we have a question. What if I do poorly this year in a class? I think I might have failed.
Carmen, do you want to take that?
I would recommend you talking to your school counselor. I know school districts are being very understanding with the online learning. So I would definitely reach out to your school counselor if you're not comfortable doing that. If you have College Now in your building, you can reach out to your College Now advisor and they can give you some tips on how to address the situation.
Yeah, so yes, just to echo what Carmen said, definitely check with if you have a school advisor. So some of you in your schools may have a 9th grade, 10th grade advisor. Touch base with them, touch base with your guidance counselor. A lot of schools have recovery options, so it's called credit recovery. So it really is unique to each school and school district. And so to Carmen's point, just check in with your counselor to see what next steps are for you.
Okay, the next question, what type of community service looks better than others? I would say find something that you are passionate about, because when the person is reading your scholarship essay or looking over your admissions application, you can kind of tell if somebody's just did something because they wanted to fill their resume. So I would say find something that you're passionate about, something that might be related to your career. Do you want to add anything else, Kate?
No, I think that's great. Yeah, I think that something that you really enjoy doing, because, you know, the nice thing about community service too is that it also helps with networking. And so if you're a young person in an organization, and you've been there for 4 years supporting throughout your high school experience, you're going to have a lot of adults from those organizations that will write references for you and will speak to your character as a young person. And so, and then you might learn things along the way too, or you will learn things along the way of, there might be an area that you weren't sure that you wanted to pursue as terms of a career, but because you did service in that area, you found that you might, for example, really like to work in the social service field, or you might like working in the medical field, and you learned that because of the community service that you were performing.
I will also recommend, once you do start your community service, tracking your hours in a Google Doc or a Google Sheet, just so you remember, because by the time senior year rolls around, it's going to be very hard to remember everything you've done.
And let's just make sure no one's raising their hand. All right. Well, I'd like to thank all of you for participating tonight. Again, we have 2 more sessions. So we have one tomorrow at 2 and then on Thursday at 10. So it will be a same presentation, but if you have friends that you think would be interested, please, share the information with them, let them know when we're doing the calls again. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out to College Now. Again, we are here as a resource. We have been actively working with students virtually since early March, mid-March, when schools closed for the year. So we're still available. We'll be here throughout the summer. We're going to have additional resources like this available to students. So just keep an eye out for the different social media opportunities that we have. We have other workshops that we're going to be recording. So again, share with your friends. And again, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to give us a call. And I'd like to thank all of you for joining us tonight. And I wish you a great evening, and hopefully you'll get out to enjoy the sunshine. Have a great day, everybody.